I think I have two questions regarding that job. Is you're so young, you're suddenly in corporate now, you're the editor of quite a large aftermarket magazine to do with aftermarket cars and such, and now you're basically immersed into, you know, the car culture, the car industry in ways you haven't imagined before. Now, I guess my first question is, did you see yourself going there within, like, I guess, the next 5 years of your life while still studying, or was there still in the back of your mind, yeah, I'll probably go back to engineering and do something else? That's, I guess, my forte. And the second question is, did that at all impair your passion for cars? Because you were so submerged into cars, and our even corporate side of things, did you, when you sat back and think about like cars and stuff, were you so excited as the giddy kid you were, I guess 2-3 years back, or did that at all change your passion?
I don't think it changed my passion. I think when it came to Max Power, I was pretty much the target market. It was young guys who are very much into their cars or looking to get into cars and in the aftermarket scene. It did force me to have to grow up a lot overnight. And I think that kind of maybe impaired my passion a little bit, because it obviously forced me to sort of focus on the business aspects of running a publication, and the fact that all my staff were kind of older than I was. It was a big learning curve. There were a lot of obstacles there that I never sort of imagined that would be there, being the naive kid that I was. I don't think it really did anything besides sort of ignite my passion even more, because I saw this new aspect to everything, and I started to look at things from a different perspective, where previously I would look at it purely for a car for what it was. Yeah. And the passion behind it, and what the point of the build was, and how much effort was actually put into it. Whereas now I would look at things a little bit differently. I would look at it from a point of view of who actually wants to see this, what kind of people would be interested in seeing this, how can we shoot this, how can we frame this, how can we bring this to the sort of fans in a different way. And then the business aspect of it was like advertising, and how can we strategically, without compromising editorial integrity, bring new advertisers on board. For example, should we feature a BMW so that we can try and get BMW in as a corporate client, or whatever the case may be as well. But for me, it was definitely a learning experience. I wouldn't say that it curbed my passion, but it pushed my passion into different directions and forced me to grow up overnight.
Yeah. And did you see yourself going into, I guess, other sides of corporate, or totally different into engineering and such, even at that time, or were you hooked on the industry?
I was absolutely hooked on the industry, and I think it was a very exciting time, for the motoring publications, because previously there were a few other small publications, but I think Speed and Sound were the sort of the biggest at the time, and they went largely unopposed. Yeah. And here was a company that came with with a solid brand behind it, and more importantly, corporate backing. And it really did fantastic things for the industry, especially for the industry themselves, in terms of like all of the people who wanted cars featured, but more importantly for the consumer, and the fans of racing and stuff like that, because it forced both sides to pour money into motorsport. It forced them to pour money into sort of giving the consumer more value, which was great. And I mean, Chris, who was the editor of Speed and Sound back then, is actually a very, very good friend of mine now. We still laugh about the sort of banter that we used to have, on the forums and stuff like that, when we used to go back and forth, because it was a genuine competition. Yeah. But it was a lot of fun. I was 100% into it. I never sort of for one second thought about where I would be going in 5 years' time, whether I would want to stay with Media 24 and go, into the role of publisher or anything like that. Yeah, I was just enjoying the ride, and I think it was happening so fast as well, that there was no real time for me to actually consider doing anything else at the time.
So before going on to the rest of your career, which is also quite a thick bunch, you worked with guys who are in corporate, big business brains, people who have to keep a business running, but also as a motor publication, these guys are also petrol heads, and these guys are also very passionate about cars. So how did you perceive working with these kind of people? Were they, friends and petrol heads who are so passionate about cars, or was it more like a business relationship, we need to keep this up and running, or was it a bit of a mix?
Yeah, I think it's actually was really difficult, because the corporate guys that you're talking about were not petrol heads. They were the furthest thing from petrol heads. So it's like me trying to come in there and explain to you, like, listen, we need to start a drifting series. because there was no drifting series out at the time. And this is the new exciting motorsport. And, if we invest X amount of money, we're going to get this much benefit, monetary as well as this, and this. And it was really difficult to try and convince them of this, because they were like, no, we are Media 24, we are, we're a print house, we're a publication, we do digital and we do print media. That's what we do. We don't do racing series, we don't do this, we don't do that. So it was really difficult for me to kind of share the vision with them, simply because it was something that was out of their wheelhouse. So that was one of the most difficult things that I had to do, because who really wants to listen to a 21-year-old kid and his business ideas?
Sure.
So it was really difficult to gain the recognition and the respect of your peers, in terms of some of the people that you worked with within the group, and also to try and convey your ideas with with any kind of meaning. So being young was. It wasn't really an advantage at all.
Yeah, I guess being at that age, you could have literally been some of them's children.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
Pretty
which
much.
is an interesting place to be. But moving on to the rest of your career, you do a lot now. But of course, as you said, you wanted to come into that position where you can actually not just drive these cars as a journalist, maybe for a week and test them, but drive them and enjoy them and spend time with them as owner. So you're doing a lot more now, also very much in your forte and your part of passion for cars. But talk us through the process of going on from being editor and to what you're doing now.
So I think while I was at Max Power, another very good friend of mine, DJ Reddy D, gave me a call and said, listen, we're planning to shoot a TV show all about customized cars and hip-hop music. It's a publication for Africa. It's a production, for Africa by Africans. It's very exciting. He was very, very passionate about it. And it was called Mzansi Rides. And it was aired on Channel O. And he initially called me because he wanted some content. And he said, listen, I've seen the exciting stuff you guys are doing with the magazine. And, we met and chatted at a few car shows and stuff like that as well, became very close. And that's how I started. So, and then I started as a presenter on Mzansi Rides for a couple of seasons with my friend DJ Reddy D and a very good friend of ours, Vic Pardal, who does a lot of MC work and stuff like that as well. Big VW guy also. And that's how that sort of next chapter started. So I would promote Max Power on Mzansi Rides, and while I would actually just take leave from Max Power to go shoot on the days that I needed to for Mzansi Rides. So I was kind of doing that sort of concurrently. And then over the last, and then about 2 years after Max Power, I did TV full time with the guys. So we initially had a deal for 3 seasons, and then they extended it for a 4th season. And then I grew from there, from just being a presenter to being sort of a content editor and co-producing some of the stuff that was in there. And that's how I learned about sort of TV production and what goes into it and how you secure deals and how you shoot stuff, and just sort of learning that industry as well. And then from there, grew into sort of having a bit of a personality, if you want to call it that, and people being sort of knowing who I am. And then did some MC work and stuff like that. And then while being at Max Power and Mzansi Rides, I obviously had a diehard passion for cars. I bought my first M3, which was an E36 M3. It was a car I still actually have to this day. And, I would spend a lot of money sort of buying the best parts. I would buy Schrick cams, for example, for the M3, and then, give it to a guy to fit and then tune. And then I would be like, not really 100% happy with the performance of the car. And, it got to the point where I would spend so much money and so much time without the car. I would be like, I've got an engineering background. How hard could it be to possibly, sort of tune these cars yourself? So me and a couple of mates put some money together, bought some chip tuning tools, and decided to mess around and experiment on our own cars. And, that's how we sort of learned how to tune cars. And that's how I kind of learned how to tune cars. I obviously had a few friends that showed me the ropes and stuff like that, the basics and things like that. And I still sort of use them today, whenever I get stuck, because nobody's sort of bigger than the game. And then we used to street race, and I would race, for example, a friend of mine, and he'd be like, dude, your car's running so nice now. We finally got it sorted. Who tuned the car for you? I'm like, no, I tuned the car myself. He's like, oh, you're talking rubbish. I'm like, I'm serious. We tuned the car ourselves. And they were like, no way. Kind of tune my car for me. And that's how the sort of GTS was born, which is Global Tuning Solutions. GTS Tuned was a tuning company where guys actually wanted us to tune their cars. And it sort of grew from there. And that business is now, 12 years old. And it's just gone. Yeah, it started off as a hobby and as a means to an end, a solution to a problem that we had.
Yeah.
And it turned into a business. And then obviously there's GTS, and then I still do sort of events management and MC work for Race SA and for a couple of other companies as well. And then there's that car guy Ash, which is my sort of personal brand. And what I do from there is obviously the event MC and that kind of work. We rent cars to the film and TV industry. I also do a little bit of precision driving for TV and film productions. Which is also obviously very fun and obviously really, really nice to get paid for as well. And then that kind of grew into that car guy Ash. So it was the GTS Tune, which was the tuning business, and then that car guy Ash, which is my sort of personal brand. It's the buying and selling of cars. So I broker deals, do a lot of business through SMG Cape Town, obviously for used and new BMWs, but maybe we do all brands. We also, I source stuff that nobody else can, which is like, the sort of rare kind of collectibles, race cars, rare parts and stuff like that. I obviously do rentals of cars to the film and TV industry. And I also do some stunt and precision driving for them as well, which is a lot of fun, especially if you get to drive other people's cars.
Yeah.
And what I also do is event work. So we do a little bit of event management. I've done a few events, big events at Killarney over the course of the last few years. And it's all about the media consultancy as well. So there's quite a few things that are actually going on. So